And we are back with actual play Swords That Masters Sunday morning speed runs. We just made some rad rogues, and if you missed the first half, you can catch that up on the YouTubes later. But now I think we're ready to go into our first perilous phase, if that's where.
It may not be perilous. We'll find out. But our first phase, yes.
Our first phase. Excellent. Well, take it away.
Yes. Before we do that, do we want to just quick hear from Phaedra and Losa about their feats heroics?
Sure. So Phaedra's feats, her glum feat is she can foretell the manner of death of someone if she concentrates hard enough. And her jovial feat is she can generate a gentle breeze to flutter about her like a supermodel.
All right. And for Losa's glum feat, her eyes narrow and the light ebbs away from her in trickles and rivulets. She sort of holds open her cloaks to show her many knives glittering in what little light she allows to remain. And her jovial feat, she stands tall, pulling light from pretty much any source around her to create a glorious sort of vicious glow as she draws her daggers and leaps into the fray as this sort of beacon.
Awesome. All right. I am pumped for this. Okay. So I'm about ready. I'm going to roll for the first overtone. And when I do that, I'm also going to simultaneously hit go on the stopwatch. Here we go. All right. Oh, we're glum. Yay. Shouldn't cheer for glum. All right. Okay. As I mentioned before, what I want to do is I want to start us off in a field. And the three of you are there. I think you are traveling at night because you expect there to be a long journey before you reach civilization again. So you're going cross country from one town to another, and you expected there to be a long trek. So you're hiking, force marching late into the night, and you're tired at this point, a little bit of exhausted, but you're out in sort of the beautiful field. There is a moon rise, and you can see silhouettes of bats or night birds chasing off the tall grasses in the field and eating bugs here and there, twinkling fireflies, and everything is kind of softly swaying back and forth with the wind. Wait, I should bring you a thunder. In the background, there's a soft, either the sifting sound of the grasses against each other, or it's, but it's a little bit more constant than that, a little bit more syllabus. There's
sibilant.
That's the one. Thank you. All right, so that's the thunder. It's a distant threat that you might have to deal with, but not necessarily one you have to deal with now. I'll bring that back out. I'm going to do a rogues phase here because in the middle of this field there is the makings of a festival. There's poles with ribbons strung across them. In this dark light, they just falling down, looking tattered, and there's the sort of like a giant tent that has like holes in it that you can see starlight through onto the other side, and in the middle of all of this there is a large figure who is almost as wide as they are tall, and they are quite tall, slowly and like with soft grunts yanking these poles one at a time out of the ground. All right, I'm going to hand the dice to Arahan Firehair. Oh, wait, I don't have to tell you that. I could just hand them to you. forgetting how all this works. Show us how you approach this figure taking down the festival. And we're in the rogues phase, by the way. Sorry, I did not say that. Arahan is muted.
Excellent. Let me I fixed that. All right.
Glum, but not that glum.
I think there's as we're traveling and we've been hiking quite a while, I think Arahan.
Roll first.
Oh, of course I should. It's rogues phase. My bad.
That's no problem.
Random side. Here we go. 3 and a 2. Uh-oh. Aha. Is this a moral, right?
Yes, this is a glum
excellent.
moral. So you're glum still, but there will be an unintended consequence to you approaching this large figure.
So actually, I think that as we've been traveling for quite some time, Arahan is like seldom glum, but we haven't had a drink in a while, and it's been a very long road. So I think Arahan, who usually is in the forefront and, like very, very boisterous and full of life, is dragging behind the group, right? Like is not quite keeping up the pace and stuff as he's usually want to. So he smacks his lips and he calls out to his traveling companions and begs them give him at least a few minutes, because though it seems like the festival may be tattered and falling apart, perhaps they might have just a little bit of some drink in the bottom of some barrel to quench his thirst. And I have the feeling that, as he approaches the figure, he raises his hand and says, like his voice is uncomfortably loud in sort of this tattered remnants and this quiet pulling up of poles. But, he greets the large figure with a "Ho, stranger, would you happen to have some drinks sitting about here for some weary travelers?" And he pats himself and realizes he doesn't have money, but pulls out maybe like a really nice knife or something, and he says, "I have no coin to offer, but perhaps I can do something for trade." And I'm actually going to do a strange rogues thing, which is I think I have the right to pass the dice to you, Epi, and ask you how someone reacts to a thing. Is that right?
Yes, that is absolutely true.
Yeah, I'm doing a rare rogues thing here. So show me how this figure reacts to our approach.
All right. So when this happens, I stay in the overtone. I don't roll the dice. I want to make... So this is a moral. So I'm going to make sure whatever my reaction is going to have an unintended consequence.
And then I will write a moral.
Yes. So as you approach the figure, so the figure reveals herself to be dressed as you would expect, like a roustabout, like not richly dressed, but in more peasant-like clothing. Looks over at you, and I'm glum here. Okay, so looks over at you, and you see, when you look into her eyes, you see like a tiredness that mirrors your own, but also goes far deeper. And she picks up a barrel and just yanks the top off of it and hands it to you. And I'm assuming you take a
swig.
Yeah, it's an Arahan style drink back. And when you do that, you feel all of the energy come out of your legs, and you just sit down. Like, just find a spot to sit down in the like where festival goers may watch a performance of something, but you are done walking. You are absolutely done walking. I am going to make a demand now of Phaedra. I don't want to solve the problem. Show us. Well, you know what? Show us how you respond to this drink being offered.
So Phaedra watches as Arhan took the drink and then just sat down, was
Yeah.
No more. Like,
You should roll first.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Oh no, you you right click on the dice there.
Gotcha. Like, what does it do?
And there should be an option to roll it.
No, actually.
On the it should say random side.
Okay, gotcha.
There you go. Yes.
Ooh.
Oh, another glum moral. This is great.
This is going to be awesome.
Do we point of order? Do we need to write down the moral from?
Got it.
Yeah,
you already got it.
Waiting for it. From
I was being poetic while Misha was
got it.
there.
Excellent. I'll get it in.
All right, thanks.
Oh, good one. So she watches Arhan take the drink and just out of it, and she's a little smaller than Arhan and knows that she is not up to his weight class in the drinking competitions. So she kind of looks at the barrel a little suspiciously, because if it took him out in one swig, probably not the best idea for her to take one. Because then, so she just kind of politely, no, thank you. Would you happen to need any help? And is just kind of gesturing at the poles.
Excellent. Now, so you have the right to then describe, if you want, you can describe how this person reacts at, or you can make a demand of me, or you can make a demand of someone else. It's up to you.
I will make...
we got to make a consequence here, though.
Oh,
so,
yes. So then, yeah, I will make a demand of you then.
Sure.
Tell us what being polite does for this particular situation.
Excellent. All right, so I got the dice, and again, I'm glum. All right, so I'm thinking about this from the point of view of Losa, who's watched now Arhan take a swig and just sit down politely, and then you've like, could you use any help? And I think so this person picks up a big trunk and sets it like the size of you, sets it down in front of you and opens it up. And from your point of view, you see a bunch of old, like moth-eaten costumes of various types or whatever, and just starts pulling them out and measuring them against you, basically, like gonna set you up in this festival here. Does that seem like is it clear enough what the consequence there might be that you can write a moral? I can add more.
No.
I'm having some King in Yellow flashbacks here. I just have to know. Please go on.
All right, so I have the dice again. I can, any of us, if we want to end this phase now, we can. Or, although I think I have a demand, I think. Let me make a demand of Losa here. Unless somebody wants this phase ended. Nope. All right. All right, Losa. Show us how you also get into the thrall of the festival. So, yeah, roll first. Oh.
All right. Okie dokie. Still very glum.
Yes. But you at least don't have to write a lesson about this.
All right. No learning required.
Yes.
So, Losa's watching both of her traveling companions somehow decide this is where we're stopping. And Losa's more comfortable near water than in an open field, but she figured they'd be through here soon. So she's feeling uncomfortable and sort of itchy for something other than just grass and bugs and wind. And it's dark here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So feeling that maybe something untoward is happening, Losa approaches, I'm going to say, Arahan to sort of check on him and see how he's doing, since he just sat down. And she thinks to herself, I'll just summon a little bit of light from the stars to sort of show myself what's going on, to light up the situation. And Losa pulls light from the stars, as she always does, trying to create sort of a small orb of light over Arahan, but the light doesn't do what she wants, and instead scatters to those poles, sort of creating this sort of magical rainbow of carnival lights along the ribbons and up at the top of the poles. And having never had that happen before, she freezes in awe of what's gone on.
Excellent.
So,
I'm down for ending that phase. Oh, if you have a demand, go for it. But I can end that phase as well.
I would like to make a demand.
Yeah, do it. Do it.
What else comes to life when we light the carnival?
Oh, all right. I'm glum. All right. So I'm seeing this as like, all right, so you sit down, all three of you are somewhat, well, not necessarily sitting down, but like doing your things in the thrall of the carnival. From like a distance, as we look into this, across this plane here, there's a little bit of eerie light that you've brought down from the stars to light this tattered festival. And that light is joined as the fireflies that are around the, in amongst the grass, start between them, or start making like the silhouettes of specters coming out of the ground. And there's like what's clearly the remnants of an old army, or like this has probably been a battlefield, and it's just a bunch of like dead soldiers, themselves in tattered armor with like, you could see their skulls, but you can sometimes see their, their flesh as well, because it's all like very luminescent. It's not like very solid. It's very spectral, coming out and just slowly working their way into what would be the crowd of the festival there. I'm ending that phase.
All right then.
All right.
Excellent. Let me see here. I'm going to roll for a new overtone. This is a good point. If people have like things they want to add to the motif, you can do it at any time, but I like to remind people after the first phase, because sometimes you don't think about it. But I am, oh good, jovial. That's what I wanted too. All right. So, you're no longer in this field. Oh, so some things to know. We are unbound by time or distance. So what I describe next doesn't necessarily have to take place directly after what happened or directly before. It is not taking place directly after what happened. This is now months, maybe years down the road. The three of you are performing the festival, and a completely different surrounding. I think it's on a seashore. You can hear the crashing of the waves as a spectral navy comes out of the water to watch as you perform your feats. I'm going to go straight to another rogues phase here, which is my prerogative here. And I am going to pass the dice. I'm going to pass them back to, I'm going to pass them to Phaedra. Phaedra, show us what your spectacle in the festival is, like what you do to entertain the dead. You should roll first.
Okie dokie.
Nice. So the overtone is jovial. People are enjoying their time, but your tone is glum. And by people, I mean the dead.
She's the poles are up, and there's a couple of silks draped from it, and the music that's playing is this very peppy, upbeat. But the action she's taking as she's doing the silks are very slow and deliberate and graceful, and she's up and down, rolling herself slowly up and then slowly twisting back down, and it's the contrast of the two is what's creating a lot of the excitement, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
As she continues on. So I'm going to pass them to Arhan. Arhan, or show us.
Are we just going to do a round of spectacles, or?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
What spectacle do you bring to the table?
I think Arhan has.
First.
Of course I do. My bad. Here we go. Whoop.
Ah. Oh, you're jovial.
Yes, it is. It's loud and exciting, and there's a bunch of rowdy, piratey looking dead there. They are the saltiest of the dead, and I think Arhan is actually so I think there is actually a bit of there's a pit, and I think that Arhan is fighting like a giant crab draped in kelp. It's like a beast of the sea, and his eyes are glassy, and his cape is gone because I'm sure somebody at some point figured out that leaving a being that can whisper in his ear and wake him up is a terrible idea. But he is exchanging blows with his chitinous foe, and rolling underneath its legs, and periodically the pincers will slash at him, and red blood will cause a small cheer from the dead.
Yeah, a little bit of the juice.
But there's definitely marks on his body indicating that he's been doing this for a while. So I'm going to take the dice and pass them to Losa and say, Losa, show us what you're doing to entertain the dead at the festival.
All right. Ooh, so glum. So Losa is standing sort of in a very, very dark tent. And there is just above an opening through which you can see a pool of moonlight. And she's sort of standing there, and she has 5 daggers sort of between her hands, moving back and forth. And those daggers are weaving the moonlight into a shroud. So she's sort of braiding it with these daggers that are flickering and flashing in front of the dead, and creating this shroud of moonlight, which she then offers up as sort of an offering to the dead, who of course can't touch it or interact with it at all, in a sort of spiteful reaction to this carnival.
That's great. If you have a demand, we can do it. Otherwise, I'm totally cool with ending this phase here.
I say end it.
End it. All right. I'll grab those dice. We're going to roll for the new phase. We're glum again. I forgot to change the overtone last time when we got jovial. That's fine. We're good. All right. We're on the second motif now, so pay attention to what's going on there. I'm going to do a discovery phase. We're moving the carnival yet again. This time, I'm glum. Where are we? We are as you've gone along, you keep gathering more and more dead, right? More and more of these specters just follow the carnival along. There's a really bad Grateful Dead pun in there. I'm just going to just say it exists and just leave it at that.
Leave that to the chat.
Yeah. So you've now, you haven't really been in charge of where you're going at all. You like the days just kind of pass by and you don't really think about it. Like it's except for possibly Losa. I think Losa might be the one of the three that is just like, is this what we're doing? Where the other two are just like, yes. Until you've reached this valley of mausoleums. It's just like all marble carved right out of the mountains. On either side, giant obelisks and just where like great kings and queens and warriors of century past have all been laid to rest. It is not night, it's the evening, like the sun is starting to set over the mountains, so long shadows are cast everywhere. I've got to give you a thunder. The thunder here is the thunder is that your friend, the carnival, the roustabout, who's also like the ringleader whenever you're doing the actual thing, who is normally very morose, is particularly morose this time and has been starting to bid you adieu as we approach setting up the final, not to give it away, but this final festival in the Mausoleum Valley. All right, we're doing a discovery phase, so I'm handing the dice. I'm going to hand it to Arahan. No, wait. Yeah, I did it. It's Arahan. You got it. So you get to roll.
All right. And then I have to tell you a thing that I'm discovering and ask you a pointed question, yeah?
Yes. So you discover something.
Oh, the morals. I am not having a good day.
Oh.
This is great. So whatever you discover, it's not going to be good for you.
Oh, boy.
Now, you can definitely leave the lesson to me. So you could discover whatever you want. It's my duty to make sure it doesn't work for you.
All right. All right, friends. I'm going to try and start building our ladder out of this predicament. So I'm going to say that as we're traveling, right, like as all of this is being moved,
Mm-hmm.
I think that there is a point. I'm going to assume that there are carts involved. I'm going to let you come up with some really cool beast that is pulling them. I don't know what it is yet, but in the movie that is this show, there is a point where the cart, it hits and bumps off a gravestone. And a big box tumbles out of it, hits the ground, and we see like it cracks open just a little bit. And inside we see my cloak that is made from a temple guardian. So like Roish has been trapped inside this chest for a while. And the question that I have to ask you is, what have they done to Roish that I can no longer hear his whispers or cries?
Oh, that's good.
There's got to be a moral. It's got to be bad. I'm trying to handle an escalation here. So,
Roish is it's a giant lion bear thing hide that you've turned to. Okay. The mouth is held shut by giant iron hooks.
My friend.
Yes. Wait a minute. Is this enough for a moral? Should I give you something else?
No, I have a good moral.
Okay, go for it. Yeah.
But hopefully somebody who's a little bit more cognizant and not dull-eyed will help us break some of this curse. Do I choose who the dice go to, or is
Yep,
it
you just hand the dice to someone else. I decide when this phase ends, and we're still doing this.
All right, Red. In which case, since you're the only one of us that still has some semblance of a plan, Losa,
help us, Losa Kenobi. You're on the
All right, so I roll.
Yes.
Ooh.
Oh, that's a moral as well. Oh my God, we're so moralful.
So glum.
Yes.
So, well, it's a festival of the dead.
Yeah.
So I have to discover something and ask you a loaded question.
That is correct. And again, you don't have to worry about the moral. I will come at you with a consequence. If you want to, go right ahead if something comes up. But
all right.
Yeah.
So we are setting up in this mausoleum, this valley of mausoleums. In fact, a valley of it, and through that valley runs this trickle of a river, just as if it's just being formed from the meltwater of the mountaintop glaciers. It's just this cold, very slow moving trickle of a river coming down through, winding between these mausoleums, and just the presence of running water, just the smallest presence of running water, is enough to clear Losa's mind. So as she stands beside this river, holding in her hands the tent, the shadow tent she builds for her show, realizing that that there's been something sort of blurring the air, blurring the time, and that the unease she's felt is coalescing now around this river, she sort of turns inward and thinks to herself, we need to leave. So she attempts to call her boat, which should come on any river. Her boat should appear for Losa. And as she calls it, the fountain of water where the boat should be, up comes her boat. And then up comes another boat and another boat. And these boats are made of bone. And she has perhaps opened a door she didn't mean to open.
All right. You get to ask me a loaded question about that.
All right. Are these friends or foes?
Okay, so that is. Okay. I think.
Give us some foes.
Yeah, I think that these are definitely. Let's say they're foes for now. Let's just say it. Okay, so let me make that even clearer. They're coming up and they have a line running to your boat. So they've been holding on to a line, like harpooned into the side of your boat. And what are we now? We are, in fact, glum. Unlike the other dead, when these come up, these have flesh. These are, like rotting flesh dripping from bones, and jaws that are hanging by a thread, and all that. And they come charging ashore right after you do that. I'm going to end that phase there. This is, I think, definitely going to go to a perilous phase.
Okay.
Let us face the peril.
I was getting ready to call out my if you weren't going to a perilous phase, I was getting ready to call out my power, but we're good. We're good.
Yes. Yeah. So you get to write a moral about that.
Okay.
Alyssa. Oh, and we got another motif here. Just to keep everyone on track with the motifs here, I think that the first element on the second motif definitely echoes something from the first motif. So I think we're doing well. All right, jovial. So all right, I'm going to pick this up exactly where that was left off. I am. You are in this mausoleum with this river running. Where was the river was running through the valley, right? Is that correct? Yeah. And these boats are coming out of this fount. from another world. The thunder is that neither Phaedra nor Arahan seem to notice any of this happening. But the storm, what I'm bringing at you right now is that these so your ringleader, who, I mean, you know, the roustabout ringleader woman, there doesn't seem to have been any ill will between you, and she was bidding you all a fond farewell. Stands with her back and doesn't see these boats and the disembarking undead warriors here. I'm going to hand the dice to... I'm going to hand them to Phaedra. I think I want somebody who's not aware of what's going on in charge here. All right, so this is a perilous phase. I'm going to be bringing all the badness that's happening. Everyone's allowed to slip and struggle, but Phaedra is the only one who allowed at this point to succumb or overcome to anything that's happening. As far as I understand, you guys are you were just like starting to set up your festival here. Is that correct? Is that where we left it? So there's the sea of just spectral dead that aren't reacting to anything. There is your roustabout who is just unpacking things and has her back to these bone warriors coming out. There's I have in my head the giant the beasts that were taking this dragging your things along are just goat or ram-like things whose horns have just overgrown so much that their heads drag along the ground as they go along. I'm jovial, though, right? Yes. So let me get this jovial here. So the dead rush ashore off this out of this river, and they are screaming battle cries, but they have open, throats that are open to the wind. So it's more of a howling, whistling sound. You hear their bony, feet hit upon the marble floor of the Mausoleum Valley, and they come charging in. So at any point, Misha, you can interrupt me, but while you're not interrupting me, I'm going to have the head of them, and anybody else, if they want to slip and struggle, go for it. But the first group of them come up behind the roustabout and just like overtaking a hill. Like 3 of them come over top of her, and she barrels forward, and they have in their hands axes and just old rotting weaponry that they're now attempting to stab at her with. And I'm going to have that happen unless somebody wants to throw something in here. No? All right. If you want to slip and struggle, go for it. What are you doing, Losa?
Losa is attempting to get into her boat. I hate the tide of bone and flesh and gore that are sort of crawling out, and detach that that tie
nice.
On that grapple that they've got on her boat. But it's just they're rocking the boat, they're pushing her out of the way. She's just trying to shove her way forward right now.
Excellent. That's happening. They crawl on top of the roustabout. She lets out. Oh, I'm jovial now, so I'm gonna. She starts barking orders in her strange language that used to make sense to all of you, but in this panic, doesn't make any sense. And she's grabbing at the things that have crawled on top of her, but they start to sink their weapons in. They're not good weapons, so they're stabbing many times and starting to have to put their little undead weight behind them to try and shove them in as she's throwing them about. I have a vision of you just the rest of you just past that. I think the rest of this undead army have now kind of come across that threshold and are now grabbing at the carts they're getting their bones stuck in the wheels. The carts weren't going really fast anyways, but they're like, snapping, they're crawling up the carts. I'm going to have them grab at the cart that Phaedra's on. And they're going to reach out for you. They have, I think the two that get on top of it, one of them has like a curved sword, and then the other one has a billhook, the kind that you would use on a boat to try and and they reach out, and unless you stop me, I think they hook you. What are you up to? What are you doing?
I think once the hook actually touches her is when the over rouster spell is kind of that roll, and that is
Jovial.
Okay, it's hard to say. Oh, hey, it's on the bigger ones. That makes more sense now. So she kind of shakes herself and is looking around for a second and realizes, oh shit, there's somebody with a hook in front of me. Let me do something with this, and just in one motion just draws a dagger and slices it right across its throat.
Nice.
Falls down.
Yeah.
And she looks around for her companions to see what they're doing, and
might I ask which dagger?
Death, totally. There's no honor in this shit. We're death.
Yes.
And yeah, I want to see what Arahan is doing.
Oh, I'm gonna roll right away.
Oh, go for it.
I know what I'm doing, and actually, this roll is possibly perfunctory. Here we go. Oh, look, the roll tells me there's a moral, and I say no. I am heroic. Yes. I think there's a moment where Arahan actually bows to the dead in the exact same motion that we saw when he was fighting the crab. And he starts fighting with them, thinking that this is part of the festival. But one of the larger dead hits him hard enough that he falls and trips on the same gravestone and lands on the box that Roish is trapped in. And the box shatters open, and the lion's jaws part as the hooks tear at its mouth. And we see that classic shot, right? Where my dilated eye, or where my eyes suddenly dilate as I realize where I am. And this is the first time in years anyone has heard Arahan's battle shout. And as a matter of fact, I'm imagining that my hair was blonde for most of this whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
But as I rush forward, there's that ignition of oranges and reds. And I land and I punch one of the dead, take their blade, and I land on the goat, and I cut it loose of the heart, and I charge into the enemies, my blade slashing and me yelling. And I'd like to see what my friend Losa is doing. I'm going to pass the dice to you right away.
All right.
Oh, you pass them to Phaedra.
Oh,
you're allowed to do that.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
All right. So you roll when you want to interrupt me. You can roll right away if you'd like. If you want me to bring more storm, I can do that.
Give me a little more storm.
All right. This is great. I think you hear Arahan's battle cry, which you again as we heard, you've not heard in a while, and something feels good about all this, which is a great time for when that thing happens where boats are shifting in the water, and as you're I'm assuming you're on your boat trying to work the harpoon out, right?
Yeah.
That shifts it so that the rope on the harpoon pins you against the side of your own boat, because the weight of this chain is pulling the other way, and it's pushing the air out of your lungs. You can smell the dead stench coming off of that rope. Everything's rotting.
Time to roll.
Yeah. Yes.
Woohoo!
This is going to be fun. So Losa is now with the stench of the dead and her feet in the river and her boat at her back, about where she wants to be. And the only thing that's really missing, she realizes, she doesn't know where her bear has been this whole time. And so she opens her mouth and lets out an answer to Arahan's amazing battle cry. And and off it goes into the sky, this reverberating sort of
Nice.
bugling. It's not quite a yodel, it's deeper than that, but it's a very strange sound. And as if it had been there all along, out of the forest on the edges of this valley comes barreling an enormous golden bear. And it glows with the light of the sun that has now set on our scene. But
Yes.
this golden bear comes running up and just lands right on the sort of the crowd of skeletal bone boats, and just starts tearing things apart.
Yes. Do you want to end the phase there?
I'm game for that if you guys are.
Yeah. All right. So just hand the dice back to me, and
Can I pause this for just a second?
Yeah.
I wanted to add a cry echoing into the sky. I just wanted to ascertain whether we have a echo or a synthesis in the third one.
I
Ooh.
think so.
I
The
think
boats of bone and the oncoming dead are easily enough. I feel like echo each other,
In
right?
which case, I believe we are in endgame.
Yes. All right. What's the third element on the third motif there?
A cry echoing into the sky. It was
Nice.
something that
Yep.
Losa just did.
All right. So we're doing the end game here. Okay. I am going to roll the dice. So the end game plays out just like the normal game, except now we get a chance to reincorporate. If you happen to roll like a thread of some sort, like if you happen to roll a glum moral like Arahan will, you can ignore it. Oh, we're glum. I don't get threads. I don't get stymied. Then you could ignore it by reincorporating something as well. But you're always welcome to reincorporate. And once 2 of the 3 of you do, we are done. So I think we're going to keep this at the Valley of the Mausoleum. There's scattered bones everywhere. The 3 of you are standing where you are, just as tired as you were when we started this adventure, staring about there is a sea of like dead spectators that are clapping, but it's glum. So they're making no noise. You just see them dead-eyed staring at you, clapping at this great battle that they witnessed. I'm going to give you a thunder.
what kind of face is this?
This is a rogue's face. I'm going to do a rogue's face here. So the thunder, is the bones of boat are slipping back into the boats of bone, not the bones of boat. The boats of bone are slipping back into this fountain, like going underneath the water. And the Losa's boat, is there a name for your boat? I forget.
I haven't named it. I should.
Oh, okay. Losa's boat is also drifting in that direction.
Uh-oh.
All right. That's the thunder. But what I want to do is I'm going to hand the dice to Phaedra. Show us you coming upon the roustabout in the pile of bodies here. I'm going to leave it an open question about her condition.
So that is a jovial. Okay. And not more.
Oh, it's glum.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Look. So she's kind of like walking through the field, littered with corpses, and she comes across the roustabout, and she kind of like turns her over so she's on her back, so she can like see, is she still alive? Is she still dead? And she reaches down to feel for a pulse. and finds a very, very barely there one. And the roustabout's eyes open and just stare at her for a second. And her mouth moves trying to make a noise, but can't quite get there. And Phaedra pulls out her dagger and holds it up like, is this what you want? and you kind of see the roustabout kind of just nod. And so Phaedra just slides it into her neck, just giving her an easy death.
That is glum.
I try. So Lohse.
So I have a quick question before you make that demand. Did you were you intending to reincorporate something there, or because there's a few here that you definitely could have.
Yeah, I was kind of pulling in. Be careful what you offer a little.
Yeah.
Just to see something might happen. We'll see.
That's great. No, I think that works. So we can consider that reincorporated. So there's one more reincorporation left.
Or throats open to the wind also appropriate.
Story checks out.
Yeah.
So Lohse, how do you save your ship?
All right.
Nice.
So I roll?
Yeah.
Ooh.
So it's a glum moral, but if you reincorporate, you don't have to take a moral on it.
Oh, okay.
And you can reincorporate anything, a moral or a motif.
Okay, what do we got here? Yeah. So Lohse has been sort of standing beside her companion, Golden Bear, and sort of taking that after battle series of deep breaths as you keep track of all of your daggers and things are. And of course now it's dark and everything is cast in that sort of dramatic moonlight coming at an angle, sharp shadows. And as her breathing calms and she can stop, her heart stops pounding in her ears, she does indeed hear the strange, almost slurping sound of the bone boats going back into the fountain, and turns to see her own boat right on the cusp of that portal. And unsure if she'd ever be able to call it again if it got taken along with those bone boats back to wherever they are, leaps into the river where we see her live her name as she runs almost across the surface of the water for her boat. But it's teetering on the edge, it's coming farther in, and we see Lohse sort of grabbing it and pulling it and looking into that portal and looking back at the bear and the Festival of the Dead and sort of clearly making a decision about where she would like to go. And indeed follows the boat into the portal.
Nice.
But we know because of the demand that you do save it somehow someday.
Yeah.
That's rad.
It's not lost to me.
No,
Yes.
It's not.
Yeah, we're together.
Did you reincorporate then, or?
I was thinking that was sort of tapping back into the boats of bone.
Yeah.
But if we want to lean into something even more exciting,
No, that's
when
good.
when you do reincorporate motifs, you want to synthesize two elements of the motifs. But I think the braiding the moonlight into a shroud and the boats of bone, where you describe the moonlight casting the shadows, is perfect.
Sweet.
I'm calling it.
All right, we done.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Good work, everybody.
Swords.
21. Is that better or worse, Epi?
What did you get?
5221.
I got 5207. So according to our plan, it's 5214. So that's 2 minutes and 2 seconds, a little slower than last time, but we still got a great story out of it. I think I consider it a successful speed run of Swords Without Master. So thank you very much.
That was fun.
Thank you. This was super fun.
Yay. So how do we end this?
We all look at
Oh,
Sean.
Sean is muted again.
There we go.
Welcome back, Sean.
Thank you. I was just saying fun things, and then they were all muted. So the final phase of Swords Without Master speed run is the bid you adieu phase,
Right.
Where we'll all go through and just remind you of who we are and what we're up to and where else you might be able to find us. So Shel, why don't you start with the farewell to our friends online?
All right. So again, I'm Shel Khan. I am an illustrator and writer and cartoonist. I work in tabletop games. So if you want to follow up with me, take a look at portablecity.net. And if you're interested in the most recent thing I did is I also wrote a strange and uncanny adventure and put it in a pouch with a canvas map and canvas hexes. And you can find that. Those are my pocket dungeons, and Strash is just hawking them for me. That's so sweet. Thank you. So yeah, that's where you'll find me. And and the patch.
Yeah, how about you, Misha? Where can we find you?
So you can find me, or my most recent thing I'm working on is with newagendapublishing.com, and we should have our preview of our first game out later this week. The game's called Arun. The preview should be available hopefully Tuesday.
Spell it for me, Misha.
Sure. New Agenda Publishing. So NEWAGENDAPUBLISHING.com.
I meant the game, but
you did. Well, yeah, didn't specify.
I did not.
But yeah, so it should hopefully be out this week.
I'm into stuff as well.
Yeah.
All right, rad.
Yeah, and you, Strash?
Hey, I'm Strash. You can find me online on the Twitters at StrashA. I am occasionally also on G+, depending on what's going on. And I guess the thing that I'm hyped about is I released a game last week. It's called Band of Blades. You can find it on DriveThru, and shortly it should be on itch.io, I think. It's a dark military fantasy using the Blades in the Dark engine. So if that sounds like your jam, check it out. Over to you, Epi.
I'm Epidiah. You can find me on Twitter at Epidiah, spelled the way you usually spell Epidiah. You can find my sword and sorcery fiction and many of my games at worldswithoutmaster.com, where you will also see some artwork from Shel, as a matter of fact, some of which is on Strash's wall. I don't know if we can see from this angle or not, but
I can do a little bit of maneuvering here, I think.
There we go.
Nice.
Aside from that, that's what I'm most excited about is what we just did, and I can't wait to do more of it. So that's where I'm at. How about you, Sean?
Hey, I'm also excited to do more of it. I was trying to find the calendar. I know we're doing more of it this month. I can say that for sure. I don't remember exactly. It'll be another Sunday.
Whoa.
What?
It's next Sunday. Sunday.
Yes. Someday I'm going to be playing one of these games too, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm Sean Nittner. I use he, him pronouns. You can find me at Sean Nittner pretty much everywhere. And the thing I'm excited about, which I've been subtly hyping through this game, is Strash did it for me last time. So
nice. Yes.
So I figured I would take the baton this time. And that is that the Big Bad Con Kickstarter is running right now, and it's my baby. It's a con I'm really, really proud of the things that we've done and the wonderful folks that we've brought out. And I would love to do more of that. So if you're interested in coming or supporting the con from distance, you can support our scholarship program and those things. That would be rad. So it's good times. And I just linked the Kickstarter. And we're close to getting Alex Roberts out. That should be cool. So yeah, that's us, everybody. Thanks for joining us on this speed run. We'll see you again next Sunday. And if you come by the channel later on tonight at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we'll be playing Sync with Kira and Karen and Andy and me. So more actual play later today. I tried to say goodbye and I didn't have the right thing. So now I'm going to say goodbye. Take care, all.
Good night.